All right, so for problem number 7, we have a graph and they're asking us a ton of questions. The first question is, well, it's actually one question for several parts. It says, what is the average rate of change for each interval? So we're asked to find find the average rate of change. And so whenever you see the average rate of change, that's kind of like the slope. Remember, the formula for slope is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over x sub 2. Oops, that's a weird looking 2. X sub 2 minus x sub 1. And then they give us a bunch of x values. So for part A, they want to know the average rate of change between x equals -3 and x equals -2. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go to x equals -3, which is here. What's that point on the graph? -3, comma 0, right? I'm going to call this x sub 1, comma y sub 1. Then at -2, that point there, doesn't that look like -2, comma +2? Remember, these are in alphabetical order, so it's x sub 2 minus y sub 2. And just for safe measure, when I say y sub 2 and x sub 2, subset notation is like a license plate on a car. All right, Mr. Adams drives a Ford Focus. I know what you're thinking. How can he afford such a baller car on a teacher's salary? I'm good with numbers. But anyways, my car is not the only Ford Focus that has a license plate. So we have lots of x's and y values on this graph. We have lots of x and y values, and we can label them as x sub 1, y sub 1, and that helps me to keep track and not get confused. So when x equals -3, and we'll call this x sub 1 in this scenario, and we'll call this one x sub 2. What's y sub 1? 0. What's y sub 2? 2. Okay, I'm just getting that from here and here, right? So then if I want to find the slope for this one, I'm going to say y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So y sub 2 is 2. I have a minus symbol. Y sub 1 is 0. That's the formula. X sub 2 is -2. I have a minus symbol. And then x sub 3 is actually -3. Don't forget, you got that double negative, double minus, however you want to call it, but that's what it is. What's 2 minus 0? I'll do that one too. You're welcome. What happens when you subtract or minus a minus? Positive. Now we call this Adams notation. I just do this, and it reminds me that I got to add that. What's 3 minus 2? 1. What's 2 divided by 1?
3.
2 divided by 1 is 2. Okay? And it doesn't give us any addition. Mr. Adams was checking to see if there were, like if it tells us the parameters of x, y, like is it miles per gallon or something like that? No, it doesn't tell us. So that is the average rate of change from here to here. Now, what they're really saying is, what they really want to know, the average rate of change is the slope of the line between the 2 points. This is the average rate of change. Okay, that's what they're kind of thinking. Let's do part B. You ready? Or not? Yeah, B. For B, what is the interval for B? X equals?
X equals -2, x equals 1.
and x equals 1. So we know the values for -2, but let's go and figure out when x equals 1. So when x equals 1, I go to the right one and I come down here. So this point is 1, comma, -4, right? Now it doesn't matter what's x sub 1 or what's y sub 1. So I'm just going to say x sub 2 is -2. And when x is -2, what was our positive y value? Y sub 1 would be positive 2, right? And if I call this x sub 2 equals 1, then y sub 2 would equal -4. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I might run out of room. So then my slope is equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over x sub 2, x sub 1. Y sub 2 is -4. I have this minus sign here, so I'm going to subtract y sub 1 from that, which is just 2. X sub 2 is 1. I'm going to subtract. X sub 1 is -2. -4 minus 2 becomes -6, right? And then -1, when you minus a minus, what do? Add. So it's really 1 plus 2, which is 3. What's -6 divided by 3? -2. Well, bam, with the bacon sizzle, the average rate of change. And if you look at this and you think about it, if I just kind of draw a straight line from here to here, the slope is -2, right? Did you just dab? I thought you dabbed. I was like, what? That's okay if you're a dabber. All right, let's. I'll do part C, and then I'll leave some work for you guys to do. So part C, it's basically the same thing. X equals 0, x equals 1. So we're going to deal with x equals 0 and x equals 1. When x equals 1, we just did that one. Y equals -4. When x equals 0, let's see where that is. I got to go back and look at the graph. Right here. This is the point. So that's 0. Let me change a different color so you can see it better. That's 0, comma, -3, right? So when I get down here, this y value is -3. I'm going to call this x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. My slope is equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Y sub 2 is -4. I have my minus sign right here. Minus y sub 1, which is -3. The biggest mistake you guys are going to make is somebody's going to forget that you have a double negative. Somebody's just going to write one negative sign down and think that it's right. Then x sub 2 is 1 minus 0. When you minus a minus, you really add. -4 plus 3 is -1 all over 1, which is 1. Actually, it's -1. All right, 1 minus 0 is 1. Okay. Now that's an odd question, so the answer will be in the back of the book. So for the last 3, try to just crank through it like I did, and then check in the back of the book. If you don't have the same number as the back of the book, you probably missed a negative sign or something like that. Or sometimes kids will flip-flop, they'll put the x's on top and the y's on the bottom. That's why I methodically write out the formula every time. It just helps me, my brain to slow down and remember what to plug in where. Okay?